Hi, my name's Dr. Neelam Palmar. People know me as Neelam Palmar. I work in Ashford School, and I also work with several other schools all around the world, and often I'm in to do EdTech surgery. It's doing an EdTech audit, looking at why we're using technology in education, but also looking at from a top-level point of view and what it means to bring the technology into education. Recently we've been shortlisted for the Best Use of Technology Award with TESS, which is going to happen next week, so we're all quite excited. But my stance here today is an educator's point of view. Not so much from an Intel point of view or from the boards, but I will let you know how we work with ViewSonic, and we're going to continue to work with ViewSonic moving on. When I speak to people about digital strategy and from an educator's point of view, it's not just so much about bringing the technology into the school environment. When I was talking to the Ministry of Education Saudi 2 days ago, and he saw my title of my presentation, and he said, "Oh, no, I think you've got it wrong. It's not learning through technology, it's learning with technology." And I tried to explain to him, no, I said, no, actually, it's learning through technology. Because with technology, it's just bringing the tool back into your environment and working with it. And that's not what we want. We want it to be a seamless sort of transaction. We want it to be like another pencil case design. You use a pen, you use the pencil, you use a ruler, you use a protractor, and then you pick up the device of your choice, or you pick up the technology that you need. So in the end, we're not looking to just bring in tech because that's what we do. We're bringing it in because we need to make that impact, and it needs to be really seamless. So digital strategy, again, is not just bringing the technology in the classroom, not just a board, for instance, not just a monitor, not just a device, but it makes an impact across the board. And by that, I mean bringing in digital literacy skills for students, where you have a whole program dedicated to their computational skills or creativity, collaboration, where you use the tech you have here to make it happen. And then you look at a program for teachers or the implementation of mobile devices in a classroom and what that means from a teaching and learning perspective, and then taking it into parents and into cybersecurity and GDPR, etc. Now, often people forget about the parents, but the parents are quite key too, because there are lots of devices and there's hundreds and thousands of software that's available. And if the parents are not clued up within this aspect, then the digital strategy may not be as successful as you want it to be. So if I just run through this really quickly, digital literacy schemes of work, you think, oh, well, it's only part of the computing curriculum. It's not really necessary. Where do we see the tech in all of this? If you look closely, you see when we're talking to our teachers and our students, we're getting them to create blogs, use email, produce a wiki, work with databases, work with spreadsheets, do something in the class together. Now that uses tech. But what kind of tech are we looking at? Again, is it widescreen, which is what we tend to do with our younger years, or is it a more one-to-one device with our older children? So there's very much tech involved in this area. But the key around all of this is we're not just going to use the tech, we're going to integrate it and embed it within our teaching practices in order to produce the outcome that we want. So we start off very basic with digital literacy skills, and actually this is the easiest part of the whole program. We also look at the parents, and like I was saying to you, it's not so much about just, oh, by the way, there's a lot of cybersecurity threat out there. Your child could get cyberbullied, or there's sexting, and there is all these other things that you need to worry about, and Fortnite being the most famous one. But you do need to understand that we're going to put these tools in your children's hands. They're going to be working in the cloud, for instance. They're going to be looking at new software where they'll be learning off videos. It could be any of that. But unless the parents know that this is what's coming, they're going to be clueless. So some of you might know that children tend to have their own internet acronyms. KPC stands for Keep Parents Clueless. And that's another thing we talk about. Hey, do you know PAW stands for Parents Are Watching? You need to be aware of these things. And so what we tend to tell them is, here's your toolkit. These are the tools we use in our school. This is how we use it. So if your child comes to you and says, I got to get an Instagram because that's where my homework is, that's so not true. And just be ready for that. But predominantly, in order to bring in EdTech really successfully and with big impact into your school, this is the strategy we follow. And this is the strategy that I put across to many other schools. These are the five main areas that you really have to penetrate deeply in order to make sure the technology you're bringing into this sector is going to make that impact. There's no point just adding another layer on top without it sort of seamlessly integrating with the rest of your toolkit. So an easy answer, when somebody said to me, if you could just sum it up in one word, what do I need to do in order to transform my education, in order to make this change? And it's just 4 things, and that's what I would say. You need a vision. Why are you bringing in a technology? What's it going to do? You need time. People want to rush things a lot. I'm not saying you need a lot of time, but you need time. You need money. You can have a lot of money and do some really great things, or you can have a little money and still do some pretty brilliant things. And you need a leader. You need somebody who's accountable for the changes in your school. And if any one of these components is missing, you won't necessarily have the impact that you want or that you're looking for. So in our schools, when we bring technology into an environment, and it could be, again, a one-to-one iPad implementation, device implementation, or bringing the ViewSonic screens, or bringing a device of your choice into school, it often has to start at the top. If there's no vision at the top, and that could be at any level, a district level, government level, because it depends on how it's, what the hierarchy is like, or even the head of a school. If there is no vision, then that project is pretty much doomed from its start. And this is the first thing we do when I go into school. We do a 3-month brainstorming activity with the heads or the leaders and say, what are you trying to do? Why are you bringing this into your school? It could be anything from, I want to improve the results in my school, or guess what, the neighboring school does this, so I got to do it too because it makes sense. Or I'm trying to personalize learning, I'm trying to put everything online, for instance. But you got to have a vision in one sentence that you can share with your senior leadership team, that they can share with their teachers, that everyone's singing from the same hymn book. The other thing we often talk about is change management, and that's huge because we're dealing with people. And not everybody wants to change. So why you bring the tool that you're bringing into your school, does it work with most people? Are you going to try to rehaul your entire environment, change it from, for instance, a Windows operating system into an iOS system because that's what you need, that's what you think you need to do? We're working with people, and we've got to work with the existing skills. Most importantly is trust. You can't, so many times that I've gone into school and the teachers, for instance, don't trust the senior leadership team or the decisions they're making, and they're really worried that today this is the decision and in 3 months' time it's going to change again. So trust and change of attitude, yes, you can do this, and there's no blame culture is so key in making that move. And so while the vision and the leadership with EdTech places such a big importance in starting the project, then comes the ecosystems. We've been to so many schools where they're trying to rehaul the entire system. Or for instance, we'd have technology companies coming in and say, you really want to get rid of that and try mine. Or you really need to get rid of that technology because it's not doing justice. But often what we're trying to do is recycle what we have. And a lot of tools now have really advanced and moved further. So we're not trying to chuck it all out. What we're trying to do is get the tool to work with our ecosystems. And if it doesn't work with our ecosystems, it's a no-go. Often that's what it's like. But our tools now are so advanced that they often can just merge in quite easily. But what's really important is that the decisions that are being made is not going to be made only at top level, but they need to understand the toolkits below, the teacher's wishes, and how it's going to work together moving forward. I've been to a few schools, some very influential schools, where the IT team is disregarded. So when they bring a project on go, usually with EdTech, the consensus is, oh, we don't have to worry about the IT team. They're not important. It's from an education point of view. And we get IT is a service to our schools, and they're there to deliver a job. But at the end of the day, if the IT vision is not the same as the e-learning vision or for the school together, it's not going to work. There have been situations where they're pulling apart and they just cannot seem to find the right fix because they have 2 different visions. So again, from our point of view, you need to make sure that all your stakeholders are on board to bring it together. From a pedagogical point of view, this is really key. Any tool that we bring into school, the first thing we do is, how is it going to make my teaching more effective for my students, and how is it going to make it more efficient for myself? When I first start with teachers, for instance, I often say, where are the problems? Where have you got issues that we can fix? So it's a quick win-win. And then from there I say, okay, now you've got a little bit more efficient. So for instance, let me give you an example. A teacher hated the printer because it was always breaking down. And that's, that's nothing new. To the point that, I don't want to sit there and I don't want to print and all this. And, if you think about it from a financial point of view, there's a lot of loss in printing paper. So what she did is, because we got an iPad school, as the kids walked through the door, she just airdropped the homework. And that was a really basic skill that she learned, and then that's how she was communicating with the students. No more printing, and everything was there on the iPad. So from her point of view, so much more efficiency. Effective, we have a tool called Seesaw and Showbeat that we use with the younger years, for instance, and the teachers offer verbal feedback. And that's really good because one, they're saving time, but two, not only are they offering a little bit of annotative feedback, but at the same time, they're giving that much more significant feedback. So if the tool of choice is not making a difference in the outcomes, we don't often go down that route, but that's what we think first. Pedagogy, how is it going to make a difference to us? And then can it fit within our ecosystems? So often with all of this, we take them through the whole TPAC and SAMR model, which I won't explain because I'm assuming most of you know, but we take them through the whole technology side of things. Okay, this is how you use the tool. Is it user-friendly? If it doesn't pass that test, it doesn't go much further. When it starts passing the technology test, then we look at the whole SAMR model from a pedagogic point of view. Is this tool what it says on the tin, or can we actually extend it further? So does the tool just look at the screen as you see here, or is there other stuff in here that we can do that we can transform education? Can we actually do flipped learning with this? Can we have the students to download stuff into the cloud so we can bring it in here? Can we do casting? And that's when we make the difference. And so a lot of the tools that we look at is not just, to be fair, some of the teachers just use it as a projector, as a presentation tool, but we now try to take it much further than that. And then it makes a big difference when we can say, you know what, the tool's here to stay. If, for instance, we use a tool and we use it for about 3 months, 6 months, and then the vendor comes back to us and say, okay, right, so we continue for the following year, that's when you'll know whether it works or not, because often we'll say, some students may, teachers may say, no, I think we've tried it for a year, it didn't really work that well. And that's what we see, the trend with this, that we're trying out tools for 3-6 months, and then we think, didn't really do what we wanted to do. And often the reason for that is it's because it's not been embedded in the curriculum. And so the sustainability comes when you take the curriculum, you rip it apart, and you find the stages where you are looking at lower order thinking skills, moving to higher order thinking skills with the students, for instance, where you're putting out projects and tasks, and then you're thinking, okay, now integrate the tech in there. This is where you want to throw in a Kahoot, or this is where you want to look at bow clips, videos from bow clips, or this is where you want to start reflecting and bringing English essays up on the screen, because you can then do analysis with your students. So at that point, you have to rip the curriculum apart and really embed it in, and that's when you see sustainability. But CPD, on the other hand, is quite key, and it happens at every stage. It happens at vision leadership stage, surprise, surprise. It happens during the ecosystem point of view, and it definitely happens with the technology. And there's only really 2 things I want to say about this, and no more after that. Because teachers want only 2 things. One, they want to be competent in using the tech, because if you don't know how to use the tech, then they don't have the confidence. And once they get the confidence, then they don't look like novices or what they call fools in front of students. Because at the end of the day, they're still teachers and they still want to feel very valued. And the other thing, so that's point 1. And the other one is that we wanted to fit in whatever tool they use, they wanted to fit in with their pedagogical practices, their current pedagogical practices. So often we hear about disruptors and change the curriculum and throw it apart. And as you can tell, I'm not an advocate of it. But I think we should use what we have and then transform it step by step, rather than just saying, you know what, this is rubbish and we're going to bin it and start over again, because that's just not going to work. Schools are very busy places, and teachers have a lot of their hands, and unfortunately they have targets to meet. So I said I wasn't going to say any more, but at the end of it all, going through that stage, we are looking to hit these 4 things, which is what we've done in our school. Reduction of workload, I'm not sure about reduction, it's more management of workload. Working smarter, saving time, and just creating better outcomes for themselves as teachers and for their students. At the end of the day, though, we really want them to be innovators, and we want our students to be flexible and adaptive to change. And that's the biggest thing we can do. We want to build a connected learning environment, get them used to all the tools available, anything they really need to make their difference in learning. And we want them to get away from this whole Generation X situation to a Generation Y, where children have more creativity in their jobs and work in multimodals. Often people say, or rather in the a few years ago, often we would just have one job and run with it. Now people don't have one job. They can do lots of things because the technology allows us to do so. And that's the kind of environment our children are growing up in, and we have to afford them and give them these opportunities. In the end, though, really, we want to give them immersive learning experiences. So the technology that we see that's maybe not so much situated in the classroom, and more that's more outdoors with augmented reality and virtual reality. We're trying to give them experiences where they can make a difference to the world and where they can make more impact. So when I was in South Africa, we had, the schools had troubles with monkeys because monkeys would go into in their surroundings, which would not be a safety hazard like we would have here, and open up the lunch boxes and eat all the food. And so, you know, no matter what they did, no matter how much they trained the monkeys, they couldn't get these monkeys to stop eating the food. So in the end, the students said, well, why don't we just get some drones out? Why don't we? So they built their own drones in DT, and every time a monkey came, they'd fly the drone, and then the monkey would run away. And they kept doing that over and again. And in the end, it went into the students' hands because that's how they solved the problem. So that's really how I see tech going. Let's use it so we can solve real-life problems. And then it makes a difference to these children because then they can see their impact. So in our school, we changed the way our learning environments are. We have DT environments, we have creative sort of encourage classrooms where they're using Lego with motor and getting more hands-on. We're doing a bit of virtual reality, probably not as much as we want to do because we had one child faint and vomit, which was not a very good thing. We did a lot of augmented reality, which they love because they're running out in the woods and, you know, connected with each other, working in teams. So that seems like a really good idea. And the drones, as I mentioned to you. So there's so much more that we can do. And lastly, you know, we have the iPads, we have devices in schools. When I was in China, they had robots everywhere, which is interesting. But I think maybe the next stage is to bring Alexa, you know, instead of having to type it out on Google and search something, why don't we just ask it? I mean, people said you might have a bit of disruption. That's only the first few days, months. It's a novelty factor. It'll soon die down. So I do think there's a way for it. And I don't think, like following Alex Beard's talk this morning, he was saying we don't need to make life easy for our students. We need them to just learn in new ways, of course. And so it's almost as though they've got a data, so let's get them to apply it rather than memorize it, which is what we're trying to get away from. But unfortunately, exam boards are not doing it. So I'd leave you with one thing. You know, our job is not to prepare kids for just something, as some of us have had in education. Our job is really to help kids learn to prepare themselves for anything. And by that, you know, variety of experiences, variety of technology. But at the end of the day, it needs to be purposeful, and it needs to be applicable to our school environments and teaching. Thank you.